Welcome to Topper Talk, your number one Western Kentucky athletics podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Moffitt, and I'm joined by co-host Tyler Bailey. Hilltopper Nation, whether it's happening on the hill or on the road, grab those red towels, stand up and cheer, because it's up next on Topper Talk. And welcome back to another episode of Topper Talk podcast. We're jumping in. We're going to be recapping, that trip to Columbus, taking a brutal loss to Ohio State. As always, though, we do thank everybody for downloading, listening, subscribing, just joining us for every episode. And then on the backside of this episode, we're going to talk about our upcoming trip to Troy. As always, I've got my man Tyler here with me. Tyler, you ready to jump in and talk about a big episode?
Yeah, I'm ready to get this Ohio State game behind us, and in the rear view, and on to greener pastures, as they say.
Yeah, we're definitely we could talk about it. We need to flush it out of our memories really quick. As always, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Topper_Talk, and then follow our YouTube channel. It's at Topper Talk Podcast. Before we dive into the episode, though, I want to talk about our sponsor, and that is the Fireman Moving Company. The Fireman Moving Company is the official moving company of WKU Athletics. Not only can they be trusted to move all the coaches in and out of Western, but they can move you anywhere nationwide. The Fireman Moving Company is owned and operated by firemen and is founded by WKU alumni. If you are looking to move anytime soon, give them a call at 270-791-1755 and get yourself a free quote. I promise you, you won't regret it. It will be the best decision you make if you have to move, if you're going to move, if you just need some stuff moved, into storage, out of storage, whatever is going on with you. If you have moving needs, local or long distance, I promise you, they are the first call you should make, and they will be the best call that you make, and it'll be worth your while. We're proud to have them as a sponsor of the podcast and the official moving company of WKU Athletics. Now, jumping into the episode, as always, we're going to start with the Red Towel wrap-up. We've got a lot of stuff that we've missed since we recorded last week. So, Tyler, catch us up. What have we missed since last week?
Boy, this Red Towel wrap-up's going to be long. So, last week, the men's golf, they played in the Stream Song Invitational, where the team finished 8th. Nick Hoffman tied for 8th. Redshirt Jr. Nick Hoffman shot a 667 in the final round of the Stream Song Invitational, leading the way for the Hilltoppers. Junior Riley Grandstaff carded a 2/71 to go alongside Fuller at the top of WKU scoreboard, tying for 27th. The women's golf team, they played in the Jennifer Duke Invitational. Katie Craig, she finished first. WKU ladies Topper Golf earned a dominating 34-shot victory at the Jennifer Duke Invitational on Tuesday behind Katie Craig's individual victory. The Lady Toppers fired a 1/281 on Tuesday and finished the event at 14 over, while Craig was the only golfer under par for the event, thanks to a 466 in the final round. Sarah Arnold finished second overall, and Addie Westbrook tied for fourth. It was the 10th overall tourney title for head coach Adam Gary. On the 12th, volleyball team played at Austin Peay, and they swept them 3-0. On the 14th, soccer, they played MTSU in the 100 Miles of Hate edition, and they kicked their can 3-0 for a victory for the Tops. The cross country, they played in the WKU. They participated in the WKU Invitational at Hobson Grove Park. The women finished second place, while the men's squad finished fourth. Freshmen led the charge for both men and women on Friday afternoon. Jared Sandfoss led the men's team with a time of 26 minutes and 5 seconds, and Kinley Kunkel once again led the women with a time of 24 minutes and 10 seconds. The ladies volleyball team on the 15th and 16th, so this past weekend, they played in the Alyssa Kavanaugh Classic, where on the 15th they played Ball State and won 4-1, and then they also played Eastern Tennessee State University and swept them 3-0. And then on the 16th they played Western Michigan University and they won 3-1. And Paige Briggs set a program record with 35 kills in that match. And they also are in the top 20, ranked 25th in the nation. So back to the ranks. That's where we expect Western volleyball to be. Back to you, Moth.
Yeah, great wrap up. Obviously nice to see volleyball bouncing back and getting some wins. And they had dropped out of the top 25 after their previous tournament the weekend before. They were still receiving votes, but then had a good week and weekend last week. Get back into top 25. Women's soccer, obviously, anytime you beat MTSU, anytime you blank MTSU 3-0, that's always impressive. And then the women's golf team, I mean, they're just looking dominant. Katie Craig is picking right up where she left off at the end of last season when she was the Conference USA individual champion, went to the NCAA regionals, and then played in the U.S. women's amateur over the summer and had a good showing there. So just a solid all around. Cross country also getting back into the swing of things. So we'll continue to talk about them as they have meets. So just a lot of good information, and sports are, like we've been saying, they're ramping up, and these segments are going to get longer and longer, but we're going to touch on every team and everybody to make sure that everybody is getting the appropriate shine for their efforts while they're wearing WKU jerseys. So jumping into the main segment, we are going to recap the trip and loss to Ohio State. Obviously, we went to Columbus and we lost that game 63-10. WKU now drops to 2-1 on the season and has a tough follow-up game at Troy next. And as we talk about this game, Tyler, we've already talked about it before we start recording, but we're not gonna sugarcoat it. It was not a pretty loss. It was ugly. When you get beat by 63, and we went into the game 29-point underdogs and we lose by 50 plus. Ohio State put it all together, had their best game of the season, their best game in a while, especially offensively, and really just blew this game open, at the middle end of the second quarter. So offensively, WKU started fairly strong. The first quarter and a half, we were moving the ball fairly well, especially between the 20s. But ultimately it came down to, I don't want to call it over aggressiveness. It's aggressiveness that this program and Coach Helton is known for. We want to put our teams and ourselves in the best position to win and make plays. And you can call them questionable play calling, fourth down, third down calls, whatever. And then obviously there were some untimely penalties and turnovers that really put this game in Ohio State's favor. Kind of gave them some short fields, gave them the ball back, and they were ultimately able to take control and put this game out of reach with some explosive plays. Offensively, Austin Reed led the way for WKU. He had 207 yards passing on 21 out of 37 attempts. He had one touchdown and one interception. I did find it interesting that Bronson Barron was the first quarterback off the bench and came in instead of Turner Helton like we saw last week. So that was interesting to me, that as the game was out of reach, we went with a different quarterback. I don't know if that was just for developmental experience or to see Bronson under the game lights, or if Turner had done something that shuffled him back in the rotation. I'm not sure. I guess we'll keep our eye on that going forward if we find ourselves going to quarterback 2, seeing who that may be in the future. But Bronson came in, finished 1 out of 2 with an interception and a completion to himself, which was impressive. Rare but impressive. WKU was also without wide receivers Dalvin Smith again and Mike Matheson, who is still on a week-to-week availability, according to Coach Helton. Malachi Corley scored the only WKU touchdown of the game. He was our leading wide receiver with 8 catches for 88 yards and 1 touchdown. And 8 different wide receivers caught passes in this game. So Tyler, tell me about the passing game, the wide receivers. What did you see, not like about this game?
Well, I'm going to start out by saying it was really good to see Corley back on the field. He got taken off the field against USF, and he set out for a weekend or 2 weeks. But it was good to see him back, and it was good to see him get the number of yards that he got and the lone TD. one thing I didn't like, I noticed, I think there was some miscommunications between Reed and the receivers. I remember one time, uh, Musa Berry, I guess he was supposed to come back and he didn't, and Reed just threw it way behind him. Um, so I wish they'd clean that up a little bit. But River Helms, what about him, man? Boy,
That's our boy.
he played some grown man ball right there. He had 2 catches for 41 yards and got hit but didn't go down. Actually made the defender look kind of stupid whenever he looked one way and River just took off on him. Blue Smith, he had 2 catches for 30 yards. I felt like this was a game that he was kind of wanting to show out for. You know, he transferred from Ohio State originally. I felt like this was kind of where he's wanting to be like, you know what, you missed out on me. Go, go suck some eggs, Ohio State. And he got in trouble for that offensive, unsportsmanlike conduct, I believe it was. Early in the game, I remember watching that. I was like, no. But Craig Burt, he had 3 catches for 20 yards. Easton Messer, he had 1 catch for 7 yards. Uh, and also you had Marquis Step. He had 2 catches for 5 yards. Irvin Poindexter, he had 2 catches for 10 yards. So, I mean, it was good seeing them spread the ball around to the different receivers. I do wish we would have, you know, broken free or maybe tried to air it out a little bit more than what we did. But I mean, you gotta go with what the game gives you, and I'm content with the receptions and the yards that we had from them because I mean I think overall we gained 100 yards more than what Ohio State averages. So you know I'll take that.
Yeah, this Ohio State defense was aggressive, was swarming, gave us a lot of different looks. Had a lot of good push up front that really made Austin Reed uncomfortable. He had his first turnover of the season through his first interception. He got sacked for the first time this season. So that's a credit to Ohio State's defense. The mistakes that we made and the difficulties we had were mainly credited to what Ohio State did defensively and just how good they were. They're a top 5 team in the nation for a reason. Looking at our rushing offense, obviously we struggled against a really tough Ohio State D line. We just talked about them getting really good push and just kind of controlling the trenches and the line. LT Sanders was our leading rusher. He had 26 yards on 7 attempts. Davion Irving Poindexter also had 22 yards on 5 carries, but also had 2 fumbles. Only lost one of those, but did put the ball on the ground twice, which obviously we don't like to see. So, Tyler, what about the running backs? What did you see, and what did you think about them against Ohio State?
Well, I'm going. You talked about LT Sanders and Davion Irvin Poindexter. I'm going to also bring up Marquis Step. He had 8 carries for 19 yards. He averaged 2.4 yards per carry, and Elijah Young had 4 carries for 8 yards, and he also had 1 catch for 6 yards. I was thinking maybe I'm just going. Marquis Step would have a little bit more yards based on his size and being a power back. I thought maybe he'd be able to go up against some of these Ohio State, maybe linebackers because he originally played for USC and then Nebraska. But I guess they were able just to bring him down. I know our run game's not strong or where we would like for it to be. I was still hoping that we had some weapons on back in the stable that would be able to shine against him or maybe catch him off guard and either go around the edge or just shove it, just go right up the middle. I think we had 80, we had 33 carries for 80 yards. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I wish it was more. I'm not thrilled about 80 yards, but I mean, I'll take it. I mean, there's no way we can go back and replay the game. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'm content with our run game. I wish it was better, but at the end of the day, it is what it is.
Yeah, that Ohio State team's not giving up a lot of rushing yards to anybody. And, if you look at their now first 3 games, they've had teams that have scored on them quick in 3 games now, and they've adjusted quickly and not giving up any more points the rest of the game. That trend for Ohio State's defense and the adjustments they're making um, is, that's how the game should go. That's, you always want to make adjustments as the game starts and you get into the flow of what's being called and what's happening. And they did that very well. They adjusted to what we were doing and limited us and started creating turnovers and put this game out, out of reach there in the second quarter. Kind of opened it up on us. So moving on to the kicking game, not a lot to talk about there, but Tom Ellard, obviously did reunite with his parents. I think most all of us saw that pregame video the night before the game where his parents had flown into the States and will be here for 3 weeks, he says. So great to have his parents here stateside, getting to see their boy play live, and he had a pretty good game. He had 4 punts for 166 yards, a 41.5 yard average. So kind of crept it back up there. He was in the 30s against Houston Christian. He said he was going to start dropping some bombs. He sure did. The leg came back, and then our boy Lucas Canario continued his perfect season. He was 1 out of 1 on field goals and 1 out of 1 on extra points. So the bold prediction stands. Still no misses for Lucas. Now defensively, obviously the Tops gave up 63 points. That's not going to win many, if any, ball games. It was just tough all around. This was an Ohio State team that had just 4 and 5-star weapons. A couple of the top wide receivers in the nation. That showed why they're top receivers in the nation. A really good tight end, several good running backs, just a lot of good playmakers spread across the field, and they really did a good job at getting all of them involved. And our defense struggled. There were times when we played well, but then there were just several explosive plays that we allowed to get away from us, and let them take the advantage. Defensively, we were led by Talik Allen. He had 8 tackles. Seemed like every time I turned around, it was number 11 Talik Allen with the tackle. Just got used to hearing his name in the stadium. And then Nico Cooper also had 6 tackles. And then Hosea Wheeler with the performance of the game: 1 tackle for loss, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, and 1 interception. So the boy had a game. When you got a tackle for loss, sack, forced fumble, and an interception in one game, and it's at Ohio State, that's a big time performance. And if there's anything to take away from that, it's we do have some playmakers. We have some guys that are going to step up and play and make plays. And ultimately our schedule is going to get easier. That was a test. That was a road trip. That was a bye game. I said on Twitter, I got 1.8 million reasons why this loss wasn't as bad as it seems. All of our goals are still ahead of us: conference title, bowl game, etc. All those things are still in front of us. This loss is now behind us. We still got playmakers. We came out of the game relatively healthy. I didn't see any new injuries. Helton's presser yesterday, he said he thinks we're going to get some players back. So look forward to that against Troy. But Tyler, what'd you see, defensively from the Tops? What'd you see? What'd you like? What'd you not like?
Well, the defense in the first quarter held Ohio State to 7 points, and that I was thrilled whenever the first quarter ended. Little did I know the second quarter implosion was about to commence. And you give them 3 short fields, and you let Kyle McCord look like a Heisman finalist. I mean, Jesus, just busted coverage. They let Marvin Harrison Jr. get behind them. Now, granted, the boy is a freak athlete, right? Like, he's fast, he's tall, geez. And then their running back, Henderson, I mean, he just really did what he wanted to do. I mean, no way that he was going to let you stop him. You had to fight that, all the way to the out of bounds or end zone. Hosea Wheeler, I seen that interception. That was impressive. I mean, to tip it and then to come down with it, boy was impressive on that defensive line. I do wish our defense, maybe wouldn't have had 3 short fields there in the second quarter that they was at a disadvantage of. I heard on the radio or TV they talked about it. They said it was that real it was a real long pass to Marvin Harrison Jr. and it was Henderson's TD run, I think, in the second quarter. It took them 17 total seconds to score them two. From the time they got the ball to the time they scored on both possessions, total of 17 seconds. I wish we could have, maybe, well, definitely not allowed that to happen, but definitely held them. I think if maybe we would have punted there in the second quarter, once or twice, I feel like maybe the game wouldn't have gotten out of hand so quick because our defense was definitely at a disadvantage on that short field. So I'm really not happy with the defensive. I thought that with the defensive side of the ball, I thought they may have done better or could have done better, but like I said, you can't go back and replay it. Look forward. Hopefully they learn from this and they really tighten up their run defense, which we'll come to later in the episode.
Yeah, and we're going to move on to the key indicators for the game. That's total yards, third downs, turnovers, and time of possession. Ohio State outgained WKU 562 total yards to 284. So obviously Ohio State dominated that category. Ohio State was 5 out of 10 on third down and 2 out of 2 on fourth down. So, again, really solid there. WKU was only 3 out of 15 on third down and 3 out of 6 on fourth down. So a little below average, especially 20% on third downs, but half of your fourth down attempts. Then WKU had 4 turnovers, while Ohio State had 2. So I think both of our keys to victory coming into this game was we had to win that turnover battle. And when you have 4 turnovers, 2 fumbles that we lost, there are a couple other fumbles that we didn't lose, luckily, but 4 total turnovers. Then Ohio State had 2. We can't. We're spotting them short fields. We're giving them extra possessions and what's already going to be a hard uphill battle. So that will lose you a lot of games, but especially at Ohio State, ball security and just executing and not throwing interceptions, etc., has to be cleaned up. Then time of possession actually favored WKU 32-34 to Ohio State's 27-26. You talked about those quick scores, though. There were short fields. After the turnovers, there were quick strike scores. The Marvin Harrison one, the Trevion Henderson run. I mean, it's a clean sweep by Ohio State. They came in and did what they should have done and needed to do to win the ball game, and they controlled all 3 phases of the game. And they just easily had a clean sweep on all the key indicators of this game. So Tyler, what's your final thoughts on the stats before we jump into grades?
Well, bad. Just bad. You go 3 for 15 on third down and 50% on fourth down. One of my keys to victory is keep the punter off the field. I thought maybe we could convert more on our fourth downs. But the passes we had or the plays that we tried just wasn't working out for us. And that turnover battle, we really needed to win it by 3 or 4 turnovers to really have a chance in this game. And I hate looking at that total yardage of us getting outgained by almost double. That's just not a good feeling at all, especially when we pride ourselves on being a high-powered offense. And to see them put up 562 to our 284, I'm just not happy with it, man.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was a tough game, and we're gonna do some quick grades, and then we're gonna flush this one behind us and move on. It's over and done with now. So, what about your grade first for the offense?
I'm gonna give them a D. I thought they could have been cleaner, and I mentioned earlier, some of the miscommunications between QB and the wide receivers. Reed throwing into triple coverage, overshooting his targets. I'm gonna give him a D.
I'm gonna go a little bit higher. I'm gonna give him a C. I think it was an average effort. I think there were a couple turnovers, on explosive plays. Drew Hollingshead touched on that yesterday in his media availability for the Troy game. A couple of those turnovers were just kind of backbreakers when you're moving the ball. You have an explosive play and then you don't secure the ball to the ground. You fumble or whatever. So it could have been a lot better. Obviously, the turnovers are going to hurt you in any game, but the offense, had an average game. I give them a C. What about defensively? What's your grade?
Well, because who Ohio State stars are. It's Marvin Harrison Jr., it's Henderson. It's that name that I'm not going to try to pronounce, and I don't have it in front of me.
Emeka Ogbuka.
Abuka.
Yeah.
Oh, I was way off on it in the preview episode. Then, who their star players are, and the fact that we still kind of let them do what they wanted. I'm gonna give them a D plus on that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go D as well. And I know they were put in some tough situations with turnovers and short fields, etc. And if we were breaking this down, the first quarter and a half, they were playing at an A level, A plus, high B at least. If we were breaking this grade down into quarters, but we've got to look at the total game effort, total game result, and 63 points. That's just not where we want to be in any game. But we understand why, and we know that there's stuff to clean up, tackling and keeping big plays in front of you, assignments, etc. But for this game, not our best effort, not a great effort, below average to me. So I gave him a D as well. What about special teams? What you got for those guys?
Well, Canario going 100% on his day, and Elders really being able to flip the field whenever they did use them. They were our one shining grade in this game, and I'm going to give them an A.
Yeah, you don't want your special teams and your kickers to be your MVPs, but here we are. So, yeah, Eller did a good job. Got back on, his boot. Boomed that ball, flipped the field. Had a better average than he had the previous game. The Canaro, when we called on him, he made his kick. So obviously, he would have loved to have been out there for more field goals and/or extra points. But it is what it is. So I give those guys an A as well. Then what about the coaching? What's their grade?
Well, I did like some of the aggressive play calls because you do got to risk it to get the biscuit. And in the post game press conference, he on the radio, Helton did say, to win, you got to put yourself in. You got to be aggressive. You got to keep the punter off the field sometimes if you want to win those games versus Ohio State in that type of environment. But still, some of his play calling, him and Hollinshead play calling just didn't make sense. Defense really had some busted defensive sets. One that sticks out in my mind is whenever it was 3rd and 5 and they decided to do a toss play or an option play, and then it was 4th and 6. I'm going to give them a D as well. So it's just not a good day for grades for the Western Kentucky football team.
Yeah, I think a 63-10 game will do that. I'm also giving them a D. Close to a C. I don't hate the aggressive play calling, and Helton has talked about it a couple times now, both in the post game and then in the Troy media availability yesterday. He talked about just that's who we are. That's what we do. That's what Western's going to do, and how we're going to play, no matter who the opponent is. We're going to be aggressive. We're not a pump the brakes and punt it off and be safe kind of team. We're going to be aggressive and go for it and try to gain yards and maximize our opportunity to win. So I don't hate it. I understand that ultimately it comes down to execution, and Ohio State was ultimately able to do that better than we are. And since I was there, I was in Columbus, I was at the game. I'm gonna chime in and give a grade on the fans. I'm not asking one. I know you weren't there, and probably on TV, I doubt you could see our section way up in 10C and how represented we were. But I do want to give a shout out to the big contingent of fans that made the trip. WKU Red and the Ohio State Red was kind of blended together. But as the game was starting and early, and we were still in the game and competitive, our section was loud. Our section was well represented. There was a lot of red towels up there waving. Saw a lot of familiar faces. Really impressed by our turnout. Now, I don't know how we compare to other teams that come in, whether G5 or, their conference mates or big P5 opponents. But, I think I expected us, in the preview for this game, I expected us to travel well to Ohio State. And, I think we had a very good contingent of people there. We were very loud. Everybody at Ohio State was respectable. I think that went both ways. It was a good, fun trip and event. So, we had a good trip. You lose a game, it doesn't matter if you lose by 1 or 100. It's one loss in the right hand column. That's all it is. No matter how that turned out, you sit on it for a day, you learn from it, you flush it away, and we move on to the next one. So obviously the focus is going to be on ball security, limiting those turnovers or just eliminating them altogether. And then cleaning up our execution on the offensive side of the ball and defense, and getting ready for Troy. So on the other side of this break, we'll preview the Troy game. All right, and now we're going to talk about the upcoming game to Troy. WK enters this game versus Troy at 2-1, while Troy sits at 1-2. This game is Saturday, 9:23 at an 11 a.m. kickoff. Now has been moved. It's on ESPNU, and it's at Veterans Memorial Stadium there in Troy, Alabama. Troy is currently a 3.5 favorite, with the over-under sitting at 56. And the ESPN Power Index favors Troy to win with a 56.5% chance compared to 43.5% chance for WKU. The all-time series favors Troy. They've played 13 times in total, with Troy winning 10 of those, WKU winning 2, and there have been one tie. Last year they played here in Bowling Green at the Houch, and Troy came away with a 34-27 victory. Troy's coming off 2 consecutive losses. They lost 16-14 this past weekend to James Madison, and the weekend before they lost 42-13 to Kansas State. So Tyler, this is a big rematch from last year. We talked about it with the Troy Boys podcast when we were on with them last night. We all remember the Jarrett Dagey game last year. He entered the game after an injury to their starter, came in, threw a couple fourth quarter touchdowns, and led Troy to a comeback victory here at the Houch. And bittersweet for him. Obviously, something that we want to clean up and get revenge for when we go to Troy for that rematch this year. So, how's the matchup looking for you on paper this year?
I think it'll be a good game. I feel like our players are going to be itching to get out there and prove them and kind of redeem themselves. I think the teams could be kind of equal. I think in total yardage, their quarterback has thrown for like 680 something yards, where Reed's thrown for 700, I think 30 something yards. Their running back, they have a running back who could cause us fits. And you look at the overall series 10-2. We're definitely down in that, so it would be good to kind of chip away at that description or discrepancy. There it is. Sorry, I can't talk this morning. No, I think it will be a good game. I think it's going to be a very entertaining game. Hopefully, we come out there pissed off and it don't turn into a shootout. But if it does, let's watch it. And I will make an amend to the stats of Reed. Reed has thrown 796 yards, so I was 60 yards off. And Gunnar Watson, he's thrown for 697 yards. So I was a few yards off both guys, but I see some problems with their quarterback, and we'll talk about that in later. But no, I think it will be a good game, man.
Yeah, I want to touch on a few of the guys that they're led by, just their stat leaders so far after 3 games. They're led by quarterback Gunnar Watson. He's a 6'3", 210-pound senior. He's 56 out of 100 for 697 yards with 7 touchdowns and 3 interceptions on the season. Their leading running back is Kamani Vidal. He's a 5'8", 215-pound junior. He has 53 carries for 358 yards on the season. So pretty productive back, one that we got to keep our eye on. Then their leading wide receiver is Jabri Barber Jr. He's a 5'10", 174-pound junior, and he has 11 receptions for 156 yards and 2 touchdowns on the season. Then defensively, they're tough. They're stingy. That's what they're known for. They were tough last year. They held us to 24 points, but they're only giving up 309 yards per game. So, really, could be a tough matchup. I expect it to be a dogfight. And then as we get into our score prediction, Joe, it was my closest game, and I think it might have been one of your closer games of the season in the score prediction. We had a chance to sit down and talk with our friends, the guys over at the Troy Boys podcast, to let them shed some light on this year's Troy team and what to expect for our matchup. So let's check out that interview right now. All right, we've got the Troy Boys podcast here with us, guys. Welcome to the show. Excited to have you on to talk a little Troy football coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much. Troy Boys After Dark. Let's do it.
Let's go. So just going to jump into some questions we like to kind of touch on with every opponent that we have. So first I'll start. So what were the preseason expectations of this Troy football team heading into 2023?
Well, I mean, I think that on the podcast right here, you have two different versions of that. I picked us to go 10-2 in the regular season, which now seems a little bit optimistic. Seabass picked us, I think, 8-4.
That's right.
And the fan base nearly ran him out of Pike County with torches and pitchforks. So. Most Troy people were feeling very, very good about this season, 4 weeks ago. Would you agree, Seabass?
I mean, when you're coming off of, being the conference champion, everyone expects you to repeat. But if you've ever seen Dance Moms, it's pretty easy to get to the top of the pyramid. It's pretty hard to stay there. So that's the problem we're currently experiencing is we worked to get to the top of the pyramid and we lost a lot of production on both sides of the ball. And it's hard to do the repeat. And so we're having some growing pains right now. I did expect the step back, but we're not in bad shape. We played some quality opponents the last 2 weeks. And we got a couple of good ones coming up ahead of us. But if we can fix some things on both sides of the ball, I feel like we have a pretty decent season still ahead of us.
Yeah, I guess that answers the question of how does those expectations look after 3 games into the season, right?
I
mean, Coach Summerall said in the post game press conference after the loss of JMU, we were 1-2 last year. And then rattled off a whole bunch of wins in a row and went 12-2 and finished ranked. Now, he wasn't promising we were going to do that again, but obviously being at 1-2 is not the end of the world. But I think certainly, you go over to TroyFans.com or some places like that, you're going to see people struggling right now because they just expected a better start. But overall, I would say people are, I'm going to say, cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, that's fair. And, generally I'd be making this trip to come watch this game because it's a very travelable game for us from Bowling Green. But unfortunately, I have work obligations. But I know that people that are going to be listening to this podcast are going to be traveling down. So I've got to get some local spots. Obviously, it's 11 a.m. kick, so maybe we need some kegs and eggs type recommendation, or maybe even some post game, spots before we head out of town. So, can you all just highlight or recommend a couple spots that maybe, people traveling from Bowling Green need to check out while they're in town?
Well, I'll start. I'm a big fan of, and everyone knows it, I love the Barbecue House on 231. You're driving in from the north side of town, working your way down, and you see that neon pig. It's there's nothing around it. And that'll make your mouth happy. You see that little restaurant on the side of the road. You need to stop on it. It's about 12 minutes or so north of campus. Go on down to the secret bar out on the right side. Jennifer back there slinging some ice cold beers. Get you some wings. Get them smoked and dropped. That's the recipe. Smoke them and drop them. And if wings aren't for you, brisket is pretty decent as well out there. They normally run a brisket sandwich plate special out there for about $9. So it's a quick, easy, cheap barbecue restaurant that once you go in there once, you got to go back.
Yeah, the barbecue house is the real deal. I'm gonna take the silver medal, but man, like it's not even close. But the half shell seafood restaurant right in the middle of Troy is just an establishment. Been there since when I was an undergrad there, which was back when you had to dodge dinosaurs when you were walking across the quad. So I mean, it's a great little seafood place. Dollar bills all over the ceiling, that kind of thing. Definitely a great place to go. And both places are places you could go with your Western Kentucky gear on, and people will give you a hard time, but they're still going to take care of you and be happy that you showed up. And it's that way in most everywhere in Troy. So I hope a lot of Hilltoppers do make the trip. I made the trip last time to come up to Bowling Green, and I hope a lot of your folks will make it down as well.
All right, man. I appreciate y'all's suggestions for the Topper fans head down there. Moving into the offensive question for y'all. Who are three notable offensive players that WKU fans and players need to be aware of for Saturday?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to take the offense. Seabass, kind of the defensive guy. The easiest one right off the top is Kamani Vidal as our starting halfback. Earlier this season, he broke the single game rushing record. He got to 248 yards. So obviously, this guy's no slouch. Then we run into two teams that all they do is stop the run in Kansas State and JMU. So he's had two pretty bad games. So I would say he is ready and definitely looking to have a big game. The second is Chris Lewis, a big time wide receiver, tall, athletic, transferred from the University of Kentucky. So followed John Summerall just a few seasons later down to Troy, and he made some huge plays in the JMU game. And the third is going to be Gunnar Watson, our starting quarterback. Gunnar, this is his 6th year. So there's still a lot of consternation about him and, what he might mean to the fan base. Some fans really like Gunnar. Some fans want to see what the backup might be able to do. But at the end of the day, Gunnar is our best option. And so we really need Gunnar to play well. So whether or not you need to be looking out for him, I don't know. But just remember, this is the same guy that was the MVP of our conference title game and absolutely destroyed Coastal Carolina through the air. So he can do it. It's just a question of will he get back to doing it again this week against Western Kentucky.
I know Topper fans need to be very aware of that running back that you mentioned because we all know that our rushing defense has been a little matador this year. So he may very well be on track to get back to having a big game. I hope not, but we'll see. And then quarterback wise, I remember Gunner. I'm just glad Jarrett Daigie's not there still with that
Y'all
inside.
Y'all are still mad at Teach Me How to Daggy? I mean, that guy, he loved you guys, man. He spent like 3 weeks there. He loved it.
He loved it, man. He barely unpacked his bags, but
it made an easy escape.
I heard a lot of things. That's all I'll say. He had a good game. He had a good post game celebration in the locker room. We'll give him that. Flipping over to the other side of the ball, who are three notable defensive players that WKU fans and players need to be aware of for Troy?
Yeah, the defensive side of the ball is kind of difficult because there's just a lot of quality depth there that we have on defense. So I'm gonna stick to three like y'all have asked. I'm gonna start with the linebacker, Jaden McDonald. He's currently leading the team right now in total tackles, so look out for him. Also, the junior Javon Solomon, also at linebacker. He can get in the backfield. He's currently the sacks leader for the Trojans. And then the cornerback, Reddy Stewart. That boy's a ball hawk. All right, y'all need to watch out for him. And with Austin Reed throwing the ball almost the entire game, we got some opportunities to make some picks. And Reddy Stewart's the man to get the job done. I'm going to throw an honorable mention out there. TJ Jackson has been out for the basically the entirety of the season. He was put on suspension for violating team rules, and those rules were really unspecified. But he's been practicing with the team since late August. And then this past week in the James Madison game, he made an appearance but didn't put up any stats. But TJ Jackson is a defensive end that you need to look out for because he really is all Sun Belt. So he is a stellar defensive end, and he can make a difference for the Trojans on defense as well.
All right, I appreciate it. Hopefully, the fans and the players look out for them players. Hopefully, Austin Reed still ain't slowed down none by the ball hawkish of the Trojans. What would be 3 keys of victory for Troy this weekend?
Oh man! All right, Seabass.
Yeah.
I guess
I've got 3. I'm ready to go.
Okay, you go ahead, and I'll let you know if you miss any.
Okay. Well, I mean, you're trying to say we have like 30 keys to victory here. All right, so let's start with a couple of them. Number 1, and y'all alluded to it, we've got to establish a run game. Western Kentucky's rushing defense is not stellar, which is a good change of pace for us because the last 2 games we played impressive rushing defenses. So that if we can get Kamani Vidal in the backfield ready to go and put up some good rushing yards, that'll be a good first start. Number 2 will be to keep Austin Reed in check. And to bat down some balls. You know, if we let him pick up the 15, 20, 30-yard pass consistently, that's a huge problem for us. So our secondary's got to be on lock and key. And then third, and this has been a problem for us, period, on the Troy offensive line. You know, we've not really been able to protect Gunner long enough for him to be able to complete some necessary clutch passes that we've needed this season. So those are, to me, the 3 things we need to do.
Yeah, I think you got them all except for kind of 3B. We need to continue our tradition of making Malachi Corley look really pedestrian. Anytime that guy plays the Trojans, I want to issue an Amber Alert for where did he go? Because he's such a great wide receiver, but he never shows up against us ever. And we need that again. So I mean, I don't know how we do it every time. I don't know John Summerall's bag of tricks, but we need to make sure Malachi Corley does not look great against the Trojans again, which we always manage to do. But he's a heck of an athlete, and I know he's had this game circled. So I think between those things, if we can do all that, Troy can walk away with the victory for sure.
I know you're right about the maybe not specifically Malachi, but I know the players I've talked to before the season started, I got to ask them what game were they looking forward to on the schedule. The predominant answer was Ohio State. You go to a stadium that holds 103,000. You're looking forward to that. Number 2 or 1B, whatever you want to call it, was Troy. Everybody had Troy circled the very next week. So do know that a lot of the players are looking kind of for this bounce back, call it a revenge game, call it whatever you want to call it game, but they're looking forward to it. It should be fun. It should be physical. No, that just will make it that much more entertaining. We can't let you all get out of here without getting a score prediction from you. Would love to hear just what your thoughts on how this game is going to play out.
All right, Bass, go ahead, man.
I'll go ahead. I can't go on anyone else's podcast without saying Troy's not going to pull out the win. So I'm going to take the Trojans here, 27-20. I know the over-under for this game set at 57.5. It's something exuberant. I don't know where they're thinking that we're going to put up 30-something points. We haven't done that in a long time. So I think a 27-20 win would be a great win for us. And that'll show that we can put some offensive points on the board. I think we're going to be able to do it if Kamani can get going this week.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. Call your buddy Thor from Midgard and hammer the under. There's no way he gets close to that total. I'm thinking 24-17. Good guys win it. Another, real classic in this series between former conference mates. And who knows? Maybe if we keep beating Western Kentucky in heartbreaking fashion, they'll finally be convinced to come back to the Sun Belt. Maybe that's how we're doing this.
Don't threaten us with a good time. We will come back. we will come back. Send the invitation. Is it in the mail? Yeah. We will leave the zombie CUSA. But guys, again, I appreciate y'all having me on your podcast yesterday and getting to talk our side of the matchup. And we really appreciate y'all coming on for this late night segment. Best of luck this Saturday. Hopefully 1 point less than us, and then best of luck the rest of the season going forward. We appreciate y'all coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Go Trojans.
Man. Go Trojans.
Go Tops, guys.
Go Tops. See y'all. Thank y'all.
All right, Tyler. So obviously we got a lot of good information there from straight from the source, straight from the horse's mouth. The Troy boys gave us a lot of insight, a lot of good knowledge, and players to look out for, and even some local eateries, some barbecues, some places to go check out if you're making the down to Troy this weekend. Check out the places, the barbecue place they recommended. And just have a good and fun time and be safe. So let's move into what we expect and what we need to do. Tyler, what are your, start off with your 3 keys to victory, and I'll give you mine as well as you give me each one. What's your 3 keys, your first key to victory to win against Troy?
Well, my first key to victory is probably going to be stop the run. That's throughout the season, that has shown to be one of our weaknesses. It really reared its ugly head on this past Saturday. So hopefully our guys learn from that, get pissed off, and just really want to plug them holes up so their running back cannot get through.
Yeah, mine's similar. I'm not sure that we'll stop the run, but we need to contain the run. And more specifically, we need to get off the field on third down because they're going to be looking to put themselves ahead of schedule and ahead of the chains, not get behind the chains. They don't want a third and long situation. They want to get a chunk on first, a chunk on second, and be in a third and short, third and 1 and 2 type of scenario, so that the total field of play is at their option. They want to be able to play action if they want, hand off, run the ball, or pull off and pass if they want. So whereas if they're in third and long, you almost know that they're going to pass the ball. So we've got to get off the field on third down. So that's containing the run. I'm not sure that we'll stop this running back. I think he's a really solid runner and will have a good game, but we can't let him have a great game. And we've got to get off the field on third down. What's your second key to victory?
Well, mine's going to be get after their QB. Me and Adam Jepson was talking about this last night whenever I was headed home from work, and he brought up the fact that their QB is not very accurate. 56 of 100. You put him under pressure, he's likely to throw more than a few interceptions. Hopefully, this game. On the season, he's thrown 3. I would like for him to throw 3 more in this game, maybe 4 if we get lucky. And also, they've given up 10 sacks this season through 3. So, I mean, that just proves that we should be able to get to him, hopefully. So, definitely get after their QB. I want him to be as nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs.
My second key is going to be we've got to clean up the turnovers. We can't put the ball on the ground multiple times. We can't throw multiple interceptions and put our defense back on the field and in short field situations. So we need to get back to winning the turnover margin, winning the turnover battle. We need to be the creators. We need to be causing turnovers and takeaways. And not be coughing the ball up. So I think that's going to be highly important, maximizing our opportunities to possess the ball and not giving it back. So limiting turnovers and winning the turnover battle. Tyler, what's your next and your last key to victory?
Play like a bunch of wet hens. Like, come out angry. I mean, I want them boys fired up and pissed off at the world. Like I said earlier, a little bit of redemption. Maybe kick that Top Gun mode on. Let's get the high flying offense going instead of maybe throwing that into the flats and some screens. Definitely come out ready to beat up Troy. Show that last weekend was a fluke, and that's not going to happen again.
And then my third and final key to victory is going to be end every drive or as many drives as possible with points. I think in this type of battle, which, Troy is tough defensively, and I think it's going to be a close game. My score prediction will highlight that, but I think points are going to be at a premium, and every single point, whether it's a touchdown or whether it's a field goal, is going to be vital, to coming out on top, especially when you're on the road. You've got to not have a lot of empty drives and possessions. So I think scoring as much as possible, whether it's 3 or 6. We've got to put points on the board. That's what's going to win the game. So just ending drives and points. That's going to be my third key to victory for the Tops in this road game. Tyler, who's going to be your NVT, your most valuable topper for WKU versus Troy?
I think it's going to be the same one as last weekend. It's going to definitely be Austin Reed for me. Like we said throughout the season, it all starts with him, and hopefully he's ready to forget about this past weekend and really just clear his mind and hit his targets.
Mine almost was Austin Reed, but I've had a change of heart after our Troy boys segment and talking to them guys. Mine's going to be Malachi Corley. I think Malachi needs to step up and needs to have a big game. I know he had not, you could say not his best game last year. 4 catches, I think, for 30-ish yards. They felt like they contained him, while some other guys had some big games last year. Mike Matheson, Jalen Hall, Daywood, they had some big games last year. But now as the definite leader of the wide receiver core and really the main target for Austin Reed, I think, he's hungry. He's back from injury, basically missed, all of those first 2 games, came back and had a pretty solid game versus Ohio State. I know he's going to want to pick right back up and continue with another strong game versus Troy. So I think we're going to lean a lot on Malachi Corley, whether it be with screens or whether it be, passes out in the flat or across the middle. I think we're going to lean on Corley a lot and really need his playmaking ability to help keep drives alive, keep moving the ball down the field, and hopefully break some plays open and score some points. So give me Malachi Corley. All right, Tyler, we're going to talk score predictions now. Are you going to stick with your preseason score, which, again, I'm not holding you to? We put a disclaimer out there before the season started that those were preseason predictions. We could modify them as the season went, obviously with the ebb and flow of the season, injuries, etc. So what is your score prediction for this game versus Troy?
Well, we were both pretty close whenever we called the first game of the season. I think this one, I'm going to take some points off of both teams. I think Western still wins, but it's 38-31. Toppers victory. Tops win, you wins. It's lit.
That's a lot of points. I'm not that high on points. I've got WKU winning, and it is my closest game of the season. It's our toughest battle, in my opinion, of the season. I have us winning 31-28. Again, by 3. If it's by 1, if it's by 100, I don't care. As long as it goes in the left-hand column, at the end of the day, that's all I care about. But I do think this is going to be a tough battle. I think Troy, they've started 1 and 2. I think they've got a chip on their shoulder that they need to right the ship and start getting some wins. And we kind of have that same chip. We just had a tough loss at Ohio State. This is somewhat of a revenge game for the loss last year to Troy at our place. So I think a lot of players are looking forward to this game, and I know the coaching staff is going to clean up execution-wise what we need to do and get better at in game planning, for this, really tough, really solid, buttoned-up Troy defense. So, I look forward to the game. Can't wait to recap it next weekend and hopefully be talking about a victory before we look forward to the 100 miles of hate with MTSU. So, Tyler, go ahead and give us your final thoughts on the game and take us the heck out of here.
Well, this past weekend, I think I went through the 5 stages of grief in an 8-hour period. Probably about more like a 3-hour period. But as I said earlier, moving on green pastures, always something to look forward to. It's not the end of the world. It's just the end of a week. I think Western's going to bounce back this weekend. And for the casual, I seen some talk on Twitter talking about, well, this is going to kill the casual fans. Well, the casual fans need to get their butt to the stadium regardless and support these people. Support this team. The season's far from over. Everything, like you said, everything's still on the table. And I would hate for us to get a conference championship game played at Houchin Smith Stadium, and no one show up like they did whenever Braun was there in that December, in that late November game. I mean, we hosted a conference tournament or championship, and I mean, you could almost hear crickets. It was embarrassing. These boys deserve better. I want them to have better. I was excited for the Houston Christian game because I mean it was full. I mean it was lively. It was entertaining. It was exciting to see everyone there, and I believe people had a blast when they come there. There's no watching a sport in real life is always more entertaining than watching a game on TV. You're going to remember stuff better if you're there in real life. You're going to have memories of that game, of the people you was there with, things you saw, the things you did. So this, I guess I don't want to see the fan base give up or die off, giving up on this Western team after one bad game. There's no excuse for it. There's no reason for it. So hopefully whenever we come back, and host MTSU, I mean, it's 100 miles of hate. No reason not to be there. Rain, shine, cold, or warm. I don't care. Show up, ball out. Get loud, get excited. I mean, it's a great time of year. It's football season. I mean, this is what sports fans live for. But going back to Troy, I'm being a little optimistic with my score predictions here. Of course, I'd like to see points on the board regardless. I still think Western's going to end up tops on top, win it anyway. But no, y'all, let's have this last weekend wasn't fun. Forget about it. Move ahead. Have some fun with this game kicking off at 11. Kind of early, but hey, everyone get up, drink your coffee, have some brewskis before lunchtime. Let's have some fun with this. Everyone support the Tops. Watch the game. Go Tops. And Moff, who has it better than us?
Nobody, buddy.
Nobody.
Go Tops.
Go Tops.
Later, guys.